Добрый день, уважаемые участники и спикеры конференции. Мы рады приветствовать вас.
Good day, honorable participants of the conference. So we are very glad to welcome you at our section, Empowering Graduates through Recognition of Educational Credentials. My name is Gulnara Amildinova. I am the moderator. And let me introduce the first speaker, Abigail Jones. He is the head of the International Investigation Department of UK ENIC, Great Britain. Abigail, thank you very much for joining, and you have 20 minutes for your presentation.
Great, thank you, Dinara. Good, well, thank you, everybody. Good afternoon and good morning from the UK. So thank you for having us today. Very pleased to speak on behalf of UK ENIC and ECTIS, talking about the importance of recognition today in the context of the NIS Grade 12 certificate. So firstly then, I'll just introduce myself. So I'm Abigail Jones. I'm Head of International Research at UK ENIC. So we look after research into over 200 education systems around the world, undertaking detailed evaluation of qualifications and establishing how they compare from one system to another in order to help with graduate and student mobility.
Recording in progress.
So just a bit of background then. Now, ECTIS took on the UK ENIC, or was formerly the UK NARIC function, in 1997, and it was to enact the UK's responsibilities under the Lisbon Recognition Convention. So the convention is effectively a set of universal principles for the recognition of qualifications, really in order to improve access to and mobility between higher education institutions worldwide. So it was set up to look at higher education qualifications and access to higher education, but really applies universally to qualifications. And qualification and skills recognition is a formal acknowledgement by a competent body of the value and a standard of a qualification achieved overseas, with a view to helping the holders of that qualification access further educational study or employment. And recognition really helps individuals to access further opportunities. And from the perspective of institutions as well, it helps those institutions to understand the skills of the students coming in, or their employers coming in order to recruit students that meet their needs. So with the convention really then came the need for an agency in each national signatory country of the Lisbon Recognition Convention. We fulfilled that function in the UK, but there's a network in excess of 50 countries, particularly covering Europe, but also more widely field, including Australia and New Zealand, and many more will emerge, in fact, because the Global Recognition Convention has since been launched, and it's in the process of being ratified by different countries, and therefore with that need becomes the goal really for these recognition centres. So as I mentioned, we fulfill that function in the UK, and we work on behalf of the UK government to do so, so the Department for Education. And we have a very wide remit, so global academic, vocational and professional qualifications, trying to look at the level of those qualifications in relation to the UK education system. And that information informs individuals and members, and indeed much more widely. So I talked about the Department for Education, but actually the guidance supports across government, and we work closely with various government agencies, whether looking at qualifications for the purpose of visas, whether supporting outbound recognition of UK qualifications, so working closely with Department of International Trade. And the guidance that we provide really informs members of the public, universities, employers, professional bodies, colleges, as well as overseas ministries. So what does that work? Effectively, is making sense of international qualifications, which can come in all different shapes and sizes, and really trying to make sure that they can be well understood by our stakeholders. So we get qualification from all over the world, and we have a set of evaluation criteria that we apply, and this really helps to ensure that we're getting fair recognition for the students that come to us. And we're trying to identify the most suitable UK qualification type and framework level, and one that will be understood by the stakeholders I mentioned on the previous slide. So to help this, we developed a band framework, which is essentially a framework of qualifications. So you may be aware there are various national qualification frameworks around the world. We developed ours to be a global neutral framework, effectively one that sets out skills and competencies that might be expected at each level that we can then reference other international systems to. Now, when it comes to qualifications, we really aim to break these qualifications down into core components. This helps us to really understand the qualification in much more detail and to orient the level. And you'll see in this image that we place learning outcomes at the center, and that's because we really see it as being the most important part of credential evaluation. We want to know what a student knows and will be able to do at the end of the program. So we consider what are the stated learning outcomes, and then we also consider how those are taken forward in terms of assessment, because assessment is what really gives us the evidence that the student has achieved those knowledge and skills. And key to highlight is that we're not looking for equivalency. So we very much recognize that each qualification will be designed to meet the needs of its own country. So particularly with secondary, those are designed with usually the national government's educational principles, their goals for education. So we're not looking for like. What we're trying to do is establish how well prepared a qualification in one country would equate to a qualification in another. So in secondary, for instance, looking how well prepared students would be on completion of that award in comparison to, for instance, the A-levels in the UK as the pre-university study. And so this focus on outcomes is really known as best practice and recognition, but it also reflects a growing shift towards outcomes-based qualification design as well, meaning that qualifications are increasingly being designed around the outcomes they look to achieve for students. So in terms of the process then, it's quite a detailed process. We undertake a detailed review of the qualification and look to objectively review as much information as possible. And it could be a purely desk-based exercise that would look at curriculum and assessment, mark schemes. We would also look at the measures in place to ensure that the standards are consistent. So if you've got a secondary school award, we would look to understand what makes it consistent across schools within a given cohort, but also over years as well. So to make sure that each year the standard of the qualification is the same. So as I mentioned, that's primarily a desk-based exercise, but we do also like to do study visits. So certainly I was fortunate enough to come out and visit some NIS schools a few years back, because there's really no substitute for being able to see how the qualification operates on the ground. And even now with COVID, we've been undertaking those kinds of visits remotely over Zoom and Teams, and looking at classroom observations in that way, and meeting with people involved in the teaching and assessment of qualifications. And then we move on to the comparative analysis phase, which is where we try to take a sort of holistic judgment of how the award compares to similarly focused awards in the UK or indeed other systems, and then try to come to a conclusion about the level. Now we ask ourselves some key questions along the way. So as I mentioned, there's very much this focus on outcomes. So what should the individual know and be able to do upon completion of the award? And then is that thoroughly tested? So if there are assessment methods, do they match the learning outcomes, and therefore provide us with reasonable evidence that the student successfully completing the award will have those knowledge and skills? The other consideration is whether that assessment tests across the full range of achievement levels as well. So, very much what we're asked by universities, for instance, is, what do different grades mean from different education systems? How do they compare? How do they set their admission levels? So we'll be looking to understand whether the assessment tests a full range of grades. And then, as I mentioned, what measures are in place to ensure that there are consistent standards in delivery, that we're not just looking at a snapshot, but that actually is representative of the qualification standards. So why do it? Well, we do this process at various stages. Very often with newly introduced qualifications, it's really to allay stakeholder concerns potentially. When there's a new qualification, then there may always be questions about how does this compare to what was already in place. We might also want to look at whether there are any recommendations for further development, particularly before a qualification is fully rolled out. But really our approach is very much to provide an independent evaluation. So they're to provide guidance and an objective view of how an award compares internationally. But it is something that we come back to also when we have an established qualification, because it's also about looking at how students go on and fare after the qualification. And so, for instance, we've worked with very established qualifications to help ensure that their students were going into the right level of further study. So if students might have been going into a pathway program, could we find evidence that actually already provided a lot of that study and therefore may be suitable for direct entry? And again, it's just a sort of an independent view and confirmation that the award is internationally comparable. So this is work that we have done all over the world. So with a particular focus around these areas of secondary, vocational awards, higher education, professional qualifications, and indeed English language over recent years, particularly, as you might imagine, for universities, there's a real interest in the English language levels of learning. So in the case of Azerbaijaf intellectual schools, we looked at the qualification a few years back as it was starting to be piloted and prior to rollout. And so we looked very closely at the NIS materials and we understood the arrangements with Cambridge Assessment. And really what we've then tried to do with that information is make sure we disseminate it as far as possible among our members. So we sent the report to the NIS, but we also have that information is available to all of our members. So there's over 800 worldwide that have access to the summary findings. And that includes all UK universities, but also universities in countries like Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, the US and Canada. And we also presented at the conference, and I know we were very pleased to welcome some colleagues from NIS as well. And our members really valued understanding more about the award. And many of those universities now accept for admission to university for bachelor degree studies. So in terms of the award then, as I said, one of the things that we really do try to focus on is learning outcomes. And I think one of the things we could see straight away was the NIS commitment to the holistic development of students. And that's really relevant, when we're looking at how well prepared the students, because we can see the multidisciplinary aspects, so where they study a range of subjects, but we can also see the transferable skills and skills associated with higher education readiness. So really designed to develop those problem-solving skills, the critical thinking, research skills, as well as the sort of communication and interpersonal skills that we saw. So the project, as I mentioned, that we did was a few years back, and we looked at it whilst it was being piloted. And so we were able to come out to Astana and Karaganda and visit some schools, which was really useful for us. And we looked at the curriculum, the assessment, the learning outcomes, but we also looked at the sort of both the overall structure and the component subjects as well. So we did quite a detailed analysis of curriculum and assessment versus assessment in similar subjects in the UK. So for example, a detailed look at mathematics and how that compares to mathematics studied at A level in the UK. And so this really allows us then to explain what this certificate means to members, but also if an individual is coming to the UK, they can come to us and they can get a statement that confirms how we evaluate this qualification, and they can take that to any university, to any employer, and that will help them make the qualification understood in the context of the UK system. So that you can see that we found the award comparable to A level, so the level expected for university admission in the UK, and indeed many other kind of key destination countries for international students. And we were able to give some advice more differentiated also by subject. And again, we also tried to present information on the documents that students receive, because the universities find this really helpful to see both and to understand then what it is they're being presented with in terms of skills. So that concludes my presentation. I'm very happy to take any questions if useful. Otherwise, I shall pass back the floor to Dinara.
Thank you very much, Abigail. This was really an informative session. Indeed, benchmarking requires plenty of work, effort, commitment from both sides, but the results, as a result, students benefit from this work. So there is a question from an audience to you. What if, there is a qualification that was benchmarked and the result was provided by UK ENIC, that it is, for example, comparable to A level. What if the curriculum changes? What happens? How do you ensure that it is still comparable to that level, to that qualification?
Sure. So I think with our approach, we recognize that qualifications do change. Curriculum is often updated, and so it should be as well, because you want to ensure that that curriculum stays relevant. So we have two things that we are really focused on. As I mentioned, the learning outcomes, because if curriculum changes, we want to know if that's actually going to impact the learning outcomes. Because usually if you're just changing content, you're not changing the underpinning level of knowledge and skills. But that also goes back to why we look at quality assurance. So, one of the things we did, we spoke with people at our NIS to really understand how the qualification is designed, what processes are in place for changes. So how do they ensure the continuity of standards over time? And if we are reviewing a qualification and we're satisfied that there are sufficient measures in place, then we accept that that body is going to be able to make changes that will not impact the overarching level of the award. So of course we try to keep up to date with any changes that are made, but we recognize that qualifications do evolve and should evolve over time.
Thank you very much, Abby. I believe that if there are more questions, our guests can reach you by your email,
yes,
which you have shown.
Yes, I can. We can send it across, and I also included my colleague Chris Lyon's email as well. So yes, if there's any questions on the NIS and the benchmarking, then please do contact me. If you'd like any more information about the work of UK ENIC as well, then my colleague's Chris' email is available, and we'll both be very happy to help you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Спасибо, Abigail, за столь информативную презентацию.
Well, thank you, Abigail, for such a detailed information. Yes, the process of comparison and recognition is very complex, but it helps widen the opportunities for the students, for instance, to enter the university and graduate from it in a quicker way. And how happens the recognition The next speaker from the Kazakh British Hello, I want to share my presentation with you.
Асель Кенесовна, вас не видно.
Вот сейчас видно?
Asil Kinesna, we don't see you. Okay, now we see you. Can you see my presentation?
Вот она.
Да, спасибо, благодарю. Вам слово.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
Добрый день, уважаемые участники конференции.
Good afternoon,
Время суток.
honorable participants. I know that in some countries it's still the morning. Good morning. I want to talk about our successful history of dealing with the Nazarbayev intellectual schools and recognition of international certificates. But first I want to talk about the trends in the education. Now there is a concept of seamless consistency and continuity between the different levels of education, and that helps solve the problems that the universities are facing today, and all of that help create the individual trajectory with regard to the personal potential of every student, and all of that is built on the principles of consciousness, prospects, and flexibility and dynamic nature of the education in the market-based economy. And that's why we're talking about the importance of this. And we should never forget about the individual and creative component. Now, the universities in Kazakhstan have the academic freedom. So it means that those qualifications that were informally received, they could be reestablished. And of course, recognition of international certificates is an important component to that. Why international certificates? Because they are consistent with the criteria by higher schools: openness, fairness, presence of evaluation criteria. And it's very important because the students, when they graduate from the universities, the young people nowadays, they don't want to have just a diploma, but in their profile, they want to have the participation in certain scientific projects or maybe some startups. And we see that many examples of how the young people are progressing. And if in the standard process, we have the 4 years, the basic 4 years, the foundation, the basic disciplines, obligatory disciplines. But if, as part of the informal education, they receive some certificates by entering the universities, they can immediately switch to the core subjects. And that's why, based on the agreement between NIS and Kazakh British Technical University, Kvtu. So there was an agreement that they would recognize the diplomas escaping the first year, the foundation year. If in 2018 we had 514 people who entered Kvtu, now after 3 years of cooperation, we can say that some students were able to graduate earlier as they wanted. And in the diplomas of NIS, they have 3 mandatory subjects such as math, Kazakh in the modern world, and one of the languages, either Russian or Kazakh. And also there are 2 or 3 elective subjects. It could be physics, chemistry, biology, or IT. All these subjects are listed in the diploma, in the certificate. And when we started our cooperation, our first step was that we compared curriculum of NIS and our program. What happens during the first year, what the requirements are to the students. So we compared the contents and even the methods of marking or grading system. And based on that, we came to a conclusion that students can so the students' marks that they have received can be recognized and transferred to the university. The first advantage of students with international certificates is the reduction of the duration of study. So, for instance, it's 2.5 years. It could be 2.5 years instead of longer periods. Second, it's much more convenient. So you can choose the desirable number of subjects. If the standard duration is 4 years and 6 disciplines per 1 semester, the young people, they are looking forward to graduating quicker. They're looking forward to starting their work. So, and this gives them the opportunity to finish earlier, or instead of taking 6 disciplines, you can take 5 or 4 or even 3 subjects and graduate within 4 years, but concentrate more on certain subjects, concentrate more on the quality. Next, flexibility in choosing the minor programs or additional profile, because it allows to have the additional educational trajectory. Also, the academic mobility. Of course, all the students, they want to get the experience as soon as possible. Unfortunately, within the last 1.5 years, due to the pandemic, that process was stalled in a way, but I think it will continue. And the students having international certificates, and then the academic mobility starting from the second year is in the place. If we're talking about the outcomes of our cooperation, it's not only the comparability of subjects, consistency between the school and university subject, but another important thing is that based on our mutual work, the good skills of Nazarbayev school graduates and their good English language or language skills such as IELTS, and we know that it's the academic fairness, openness, and one more thing, international certificates not only allow students to get the core knowledge, but also self-study skills, communication skills, team working skills, time management skills, because lots of attention is paid to that, of course, during the first year and then in the next years. But the basic skills they are already having when they enter the university. So these soft skills, they are in a big need. And we can say that international certificates is a guarantee that the students can start second year subjects during the first year. Here you can see that thanks to the certificates, students can graduate earlier. We have some people who entered in 2018, and some people graduated after less than 3 years. Of course, some of them decide to take the subject, to take less subjects, as I said, and there are some other approaches. But since we have such a good experience, so I think there are some prospects for the cooperation, future cooperation. The school students when they're in the 11th or 12th grade, they already beforehand, if they have some free time, they can take our subjects, and that would be an accelerated way of getting the certificate with the mark and the transcript, and then based on that they can choose the universities, our university or other universities. So I think the outcomes of our cooperation are aimed at seamless, continuous education, aimed at growing or raising the level of the quality, development of a personality. So that was a very brief presentation about our success story, and we're open to further cooperation. And if those who are present have questions, so please feel free to ask, or we can do it later on. Thank you, Asil Kenyasana. We are very thankful to KBTU for being the first, one of the first, to recognize the certificates of NIS and accepting our students for accelerated. But the question, how successful are the students of NIS who have the shortened program at your university? How successful are they? Well, as you know, all the students are different. We look at the performance by every department, and we see that some students are better at certain subjects, mostly about the these are specialized subjects. But generally speaking, the NIS alumni, they are very well versed in the soft study skills. They can work in teams. They know what the academic fairness is and some other academic integrity. So if you compare them with the regular high school graduates, they are different. They already have better choices, better informed choices. And we know very well that it's important not just to have the knowledge, material knowledge, but also some other soft skills. Well, thank you so much. The role of interaction between schools and universities are so important, yes. And the floor now goes to our next speaker, Saltanat Besimbina, Associated Registrator of the Nazarbayev University Registration Office, Kazakhstan. Saltanat, the floor is yours. Hello, Danara. Thank you very much.
First of all, let me share my screen. Just a second. So now it should work. Danara and whole organizing committee, thank you one more time for inviting us as an Azerbaijaf University to attend your international conference. And we really hope that the information we'll be sharing today will be very useful. And and knowledgeable. So just to start, my name is Saltanat and I'm working at the Office of the Register. And why specifically representatives from our office were invited to attend this presentation. And so let me briefly tell what the Office of the Register at the Nazarbayev University does. So we are the office who mainly conduct and monitor and actually write academic policies and procedures for all the students. We also change and conduct and control all the student status change, talking about their withdrawals, acceptance, leave of absence. And we do monitor and actually have all the student personal records, or so we call the database, right? And I think that was a good thing to start from. When we were approached by the NIS to prepare the information on how the actually graduates from NIS doing at Nazarbayev University and how successful they are and what achievements they got during the studying at Nazarbayev University. So overall, Office of the Register, from the point when the students were admitted to the university to the point when they graduate within this 4 or 5 years, come together with the students hand by hand to answer their queries and help them academically. Specifically about our, let's say, relationship with Nazarbayev University and Nazarbayev Intellectual Schools. As you may know, majority of you know the international colleagues also from other countries who are present today here. The Nazarbayev University established back to 2010. And actually our first, one of the first students who enrolled to Azerbaijaf University was the NIS students. They joined the same, our community in 2010 when we opened our doors for students to start together with us all this journey that already lasting for more than 10 years. So since 2010, more than 7,000 students were enrolled to our NUFI program. It's an Azerbaijaf University Foundation Year program. I decided to indicate specific this information because usually I will tell you later from the NUFI program, students start to get to the undergraduate degrees. So, and actually from those numbers, more than 2,000 students were from NIS school during all these 11 years. And the last interesting information also, I think, as statistics, so you know that in 7 years from the point of when we started to graduate our students, first graduation happened back to 2015. From that time on, we graduated more than 4,000 undergraduate students with bachelor's degree. And actually 18% of those students who graduated from Azerbaijaf University are NIS students. About the admission to the university, I know that the conference specifically focused on the achievements and actually those, let's say, unique experience that NIS school provides to their graduates. So it makes their life easier when they continue their studies in the bachelor's degree, in the master's degree. And that's really awesome opportunities that's given to all our Kazakhstani students. And at the same time, Nazarbayev University do open the doors to all students from all different universities, from high school, secondary school universities to the high level, let's say, or those who run based on international programs as an NIS schools. And we try to treat everybody at the same level and gives up the same opportunity to all our students. Saying though that actually students could apply based on the two main programs, or they can apply to Nazarbayev, be admitted to Nazarbayev University in two ways, let's say. First one, as I've mentioned, is the foundation year program. It's a 1-year intensive program that are taught in our Center for Preparatory Studies. And the students usually gain the skills and math skills, improve their English skills, also get to know university much closer and improve their writing skills and get ready for their undergraduate degree. And or students could directly apply for undergraduate program that usually lasts for 4 years based on the program or major or specific they use. So in this case, NIS students actually, both options are available for them, because some students prefer still to go through foundation program, so they get to know each other better, and then they continue their 4 years of studies at the Nazarbayev University together. And some students prefer to apply, as we call it, direct entry, directly to undergraduate program, and continue their study and dedicate the 4 years of studies for the specific program or majors they've chosen. So here, it doesn't mean that, okay, if you applied for a foundation and didn't get to your undergraduate programs, that something is wrong with the students. It's 100% choice of a student, whether they would like to apply and go through foundation program first and then enter the undergraduate program. The difference in between is that those who study at the foundation program, they are not directly accepted to undergraduate degree. In between, they will have this assessment. They need to pass and go through all the examinations in order to be admitted to undergraduate program. So they can study at the foundation program, complete the program, get the certification of completion, and then if they would like to continue their studies maybe somewhere abroad, with this certificate, they just can continue and go to study abroad. Or some students prefer and stay and they apply for undergraduate program here at Azerbaijaf University and continue their studies here. Just to mention, the schools we are calling it the schools at Azerbaijaf University. It's not the schools in the city or in the country. So we have 4 major schools at Azerbaijaf University that teach and give the different majors and grant different level of different degrees. Bachelor's degrees in different fields, I'm sorry. So School of Science and Humanities, School of Engineering and Digital Science, School of Mining and Geosciences, and School of Medicine. This is 4 main undergraduate schools we have at Azerbaijaf University. So academic performance, when the question was addressed to us saying that, okay, how our NIS graduates doing well at Azerbaijaf University or not, and the first thing that came into my mind, it's again to relate to our policies we have. And here, as you can see, I took the extract from the undergraduate academic policies and procedures, where we indicate the general information or let's say description of what it is a student in a good academic standing. Student who is good and actually can graduate from the university. And this is what it means. A student having a CGPA is a general grade point average. And the GPA is a semester-based GPA and cumulative GPA when it's equal to 2 or higher than 2.0 out of 4.0 GPA scale we have, or above is considered to be in a good academic standing, which means we decided not to go deep into the statistics, but we took the upcoming 3 years, 2021. I know it sounds awkward, but it's in progress. We will be having in 2 weeks a final examination and we will see the results, and I will be glad to share with it. But based on 2020, last year's information, the average cumulative GPA of NIS students studying at Azerbaijaf University was 3.9 out of 4.0, and in 2019 average CGPA is equal for 3.14. Usually we don't provide this comparison or ranking based on the GPAs, but because we've been requested and it was also curious for us to know how well the students are doing, and we discovered a very nice trend. And I think it's more than good, higher than the average good academic standing, which I think the school, NIS school, needs to be proud of, because the students are doing very, very well at Azerbaijaf University, even if the studies is really hard and compatible. So just so you know, to see, I decided to add 2 more slides regarding the graduation criteria from Azerbaijaf University, so you know where the students will be striving for studying at Azerbaijaf University. We have the honors designation, and as you can see, this is also only for undergraduate students. We have this 4 major honors designation for students after they study for 4 or 5 years and graduate from Azerbaijaf University, so-called the red diploma, and they get this red diploma with distinction, summa cum laude, magna cum laude, and cum laude, all of it based on the cumulative GPA of students, how well they were studying during the all 4 or 5 years of their studies. And actually a good information we got also from that one. Overall, out of all the undergraduate students who graduated with honors within this 7 years, 13.5% of all students graduated with honors from Azerbaijaf University, NIS graduates, which is also, I think, very good number to see, and that the students are succeeding at the end of their bachelor's degree also. And here, as you just briefly, I will go through this slide, the graduate attributes we expect from all the graduates of Nazarbayev University. So those students who enter the university, they go with these expectations and attributes, and also they graduate and bring this information to the community and society all around them, all around the world, right? Not only in Nazarbayev University. And we really find this attributes crossing each other with those NIS graduating students who come on our community, who enter our university, and they are so much into the, let's say, studies and into this environment and easily adapting and performing very well. And one of them, as you can see this, right, the students who are intellectually agile, and we really want them to have this entrepreneurial skills, and that they are leading, they will be taking the leading role in the developing of the country and the communities they're in. Just a nice picture, I think. This was a graduation 2019. One of the last in-person graduation ceremonies we had. And showing this picture, I just wanted to mention that talking with the faculty and with the staff of Nazarbayev University who was communicating in touch or teaching to NIS graduating students, they really would love to highlight 3 major, let's say, it's not a skills, but I think it's a strength of those NIS graduating students, that the students are very responsible and they're very hardworking and easily adapting to the environment that they're put on, even if it's under the pressure and under the stress. So we are really thankful for NIS one more time to inviting us, letting us to share this information, and really making a big change in the educational system and being an example to others to follow and strive. So this is the last slide for today. One more time, thank you for your time. Here my email, you can write me if you have any questions, and our webpage if you would like to visit. Danara, that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Saltanat. Благодарим, Салтанат. У нас на самом деле...
Well, thank you so much, Saltanat. That was a very interesting presentation with lots of useful information. But we have one more speaker who is expecting his presentation. He is not having too much time. The questions that we are going to have, we're going to email, and we hope to get the feedback. Thank you so much. And now we want to give the floor to our 4th speaker. Hello, Ilana. Today we have listened to the presentation of the international organization. Also, we listened to our domestic representatives of our domestic higher educational institutions. But now let's talk to the alumni from Nur Sultan, Ilana Amangildi, Physics and Mathematics. Can you see the screen? Yes, we can. We can hear it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amangildi Ilana, and the topic of my presentation today is Accelerated Course of Study at Kazakh British Technical University. So I would like to start with some general information about me. I am a graduate of Nazarbayev Intellectual Schools of Nur Sultan, and I studied there from 2012 till 2018, and currently I am a fourth-year student at Kvtu, Faculty of Information Technology, and my specialty is automation and control. Education form is shortened, 3.5 years instead of 4 years. So I entered Kvtu in 2018, and I will hopefully graduate next month in December 2021. So I chose Kvtu mainly because they provided a shortened form of education and had the opportunity to recalculate some of the disciplines that we've covered in school. So the grades from school certificate were transferred to the university transcript, and overall we had 9 disciplines, including English, calculus, physics, Russian, Kazakh, and physical education. Next, I would like to discuss some of the benefits and advantages of studying in Kvtu. So as the disciplines like English and physical educations were recalculated, we started studying difficult disciplines like profile subjects during first year instead of second year. And therefore, we didn't waste time on the material that was learned at school. Also, as it is necessary for all of the Kvtu students to pass the internship practice and pre-diploma practice. However, the NIS graduates had the opportunity to pass these practices much earlier, and we've had more time to write diploma work. For example, me and my friends right now, we started working on our diploma on summer break, and right now almost 80% of the work is done. However, I did face some minor difficulties of studying at Kvtu. Many students had problems with programming disciplines, including NIS graduates, and more than half of the students had to retake this course. And therefore, we additionally stayed for summer semester to retake these disciplines. As for expectations, I thought that we will graduate from university in 3 years, but the period was changed for 3.5 years because we've had too much disciplines to cover and not enough time. So we are graduating in 3.5 years. So I think accelerated course of study mainly depends on the programs at the university, on the faculty and specialty, because as far as I know, some of the students at Kvtu from other faculties already graduated in 3 years. But overall, my expectations were met. And for recommendations and future plans, I think that Nazarbayev Intellectual Schools gave chance to shorten the study and quicker realize my future plans. Although studying at Kvtu is very difficult and expensive, you become competitive and skilled professional. And for future plans, I would like to continue sharing my study experience at NIS Alumni Association and maybe current NIS students. So that's all. Thank you for your attention.
Спасибо вам большое, Илана. Thank you very much, Илана. На самом деле очень интересно слышать наших выпускников.
Yes, it's very interesting to listen to our alumni.
Илана, мы желаем вам
either those who already graduated or who are about to graduate. So we wish you all the success, Ilana. And I have a question. What skills that you have obtained in school helped you during the first year and further on during the studies? For instance, global perspectives, or a subject, Kazakhstan in the modern world. I really appreciate that we had those, because we learned how to do the citation references. And that helped me a lot when I wrote the diploma work. This is an example. Well, thank you so much, Ilana. I hope that we will hear about you many times in the future. We are proud of our graduates, of our students. I want to thank all the speakers for participating in our session. It was a pleasure to see you all. I think that we have received a lot of useful information. And at that, let me finish our session. Thank you for your attention.